Dude, I think you shouldn't have sugar before the presentation.
All right, I'll put it away.
Dude, I think you shouldn't have sugar before the presentation.
All right, I'll put it away.
Yeah, could you like fix your color issue as well?
This one. Uh, yeah, sure. There you go.
Okay, and like I think you shouldn't use your grumpy mug for the presentation either. Huh?
All right, Kat.
It's annoying, isn't it?
Yeah, I would really prefer you not to tell me what I should do.
Yeah, I can understand that, and I think it's perfectly normal because I think you felt a bit like I'm not good enough, right? And this is exactly what's happening when other people like just tell us how we should do your job, do our job, raise our kids, dress up, whatever. The thing is, our ego doesn't want to justify itself, doesn't want to be questioned. In a nutshell, our ego doesn't want to be challenged. Hi there. My name is Catherine Viesley. I'm head of business services at Odoo Belgium. And I'm leading today like kind of 200 project leaders. And the project leaders are responsible for a lot of projects. So to give you an idea, today only in Belgium we manage pretty much 1,500 projects per year. So they need to be efficient and they need to make sure that their project are going to be a success. And for that, they need to master the subtle art of challenging customers. But I think you know that someone else is going to be in this talk with me. So I'm going to let him introduce himself.
Thank you, Kat. Indeed, my name is Niels van Oosten. I'm part of the partner enablement team. So the team that guides hundreds of partners every year to help them in the methodology of Odoo. And what we see a lot is that they can learn the product and they can even implement a solution. But some things that are very difficult to learn for a lot of our partners is actually how to challenge customers. And the partners that succeed to do this correctly, those are the ones that have the most chance of actually succeed with their partnership.
I'm pretty sure that you would like to have the answer to that question. And I'm going to tell you it's not good. So you're going to be kind of caught up in a dramatic descent to hell. I'm pretty sure you know the story of this project perfectly qualified with a great planning. Like on paper, it's a success for sure. And then you realize that your customer is really creative, or maybe there is a gap between what he understood he bought and what you thought you sold. But at the end of the day, you're gonna have those conversations with your customer and they're going to come with new ideas and you're going to completely forget that you have to keep control on your project, and at the end this project is never ending, and plus on top of that you have doubt on the fact that your solution is still consistent, and I'm not even talking about the stability of the system. And that is the moment you tell yourself, I should have said no. But I'm not done. After that, you have a project team working well trained. They're used to go to the finish line as fast as possible. They want to deliver the best solution to their customer, and they're a bit frustrated. You know, could you imagine? Could you imagine like a team, runners, being about to run a race, and then it starts, and they start walking, and then they start going backward, and then after that, they keep hoping to win the race. How would you feel if you were them? But I'm not done. Let's talk about the other side, your customer. You have sponsors, you have Spock, you have key users, and they're all starting to tell themselves, Did we make the right decision to go with that integrator? And on your side, you feel, yeah, but they're a bit responsible now for this kind of disaster. And they wanted to go too far, they asked new things, and we had to manage all of this. But you're wrong. You are responsible to prevent them to fall into those traps. But I think you know what I'm going to say. I'm not done. What do you think is going to happen with the end users if the project team is already losing it? You know, normally the internal project team is responsible to prepare the company for change, and now they lost it already. So, best case scenario, the end users just don't care. Worst case scenario, they're going to spend as much energy as possible to not go live. But I'm not done. There is a last step. They're going to want to upgrade at some point to jump into a more recent version. And just like me, that an upgrade is like a small project. You implement, you fix bug, you train people. So you go back to what you've gone through with your customer, and they already kind of lost the trust, right? So this step is going to be even harder than it could be sometimes. And by having a lot to upgrade on top of the standard solution, it's going to be a cost for someone, for you or for your customer. And you're going to try to maybe to make your customer pay for that. And this is when the really complex conversation is going to start. And you know what? This conversation is going to be way more complex than the one you should have had at the very beginning and throughout the project by challenging your customer. So the thing is just a small piece of advice for next time. You know, fear is temporary, regret is forever. Now you know what it is, what's going to happen if you don't challenge your customer. And I would say Nis is going to explain you a bit more what it means actually to challenge customers.
When we speak about something that is challenging, it's usually something that feels negative, something to overcome, or something difficult that we need to handle. And what we would like to explain to you is that challenging a customer could actually be a very positive effect on the entire project. A way to explain is that challenging a customer is putting in question everything your customer asks you, every demand, every activity that they do, and try to build the right advice for them for their project to make it a success. Um, it can be by asking the right questions. It can also be by understanding better what they would like to achieve. And I will give you a small example to visualize a bit on how that could look. Um, Imagine that in the relationship you have two sides. So on one side you have the customer, and on the other side you have the business project leader. So the customer knows what they would like to do, and on the other side the project leader, they know how to get it done. And you're not always on the same level, so the challenging part comes in the middle. We need to ask the two main questions that we want to get answer is, why do we want to do this? And the other question that we want to answer is, should we do this? There are many questions around it that we can ask, and many discussions we need to have with our customer, to figure out the why. So the why in the end leads to the kind of solution that the project leader can answer with the correct how. And that can be standard functionality, standard apps, custom development. It doesn't matter that much what that answer is, but it needs to be the correct answer that can support the project success. So that is the theory. And that is what we mean when we talk about challenging a customer. Catherine, in a more concrete example, could you tell us how that works?
Yeah, of course. So the thing is, for that, I'm going to have to talk a bit about the Odoo implementation methodology and especially about the concept of MVP. So, of course, I'm not going to go too much into details First, because you've probably attended to Antoine Sansi's talk about the Odoo implementation methodology, but also because this is not the main topic of this talk. So, just to summarize a bit what I'm going to say right now, our main objective by applying the Odoo implementation methodology is to make our customer use the solution as fast as possible. Why do we want them to use the solution as fast as possible? Because we want to reduce the gap between us and them in terms of product knowledge, and we want them to experience the use of the solution before trying to overkill completely in their implementation. So we want them to have this experience and to be actually able to define what matters from what doesn't really matter in their implementation. So what we're going to do is to focus on defining a minimum viable product, which is a solution that help them to achieve and to be as efficient, at least as efficient as they are today. So how does it work concretely? So we start the project with the project initiation, and during this phase, one of the thing we're going to achieve is getting all the information about how it's working today for them with their current tools, their current processes, and all the issues they have and they want to tackle by implementing Odoo. Based on that information, we're going to define the content of the MVP and postpone to a later phase, put in a parking lot all the requirement that we consider shouldn't be in the MVP. And of course, this is a negotiation. Huh? So we're going to propose the first version of the MVP, discuss it with the SPOC essentially, and end up with like a version of the MVP we all believe in, so that we can all achieve and implement this project together. And of course, you expect the next step. We're going to have what we call the second deployment, where after having implemented this first version of their solution, we're going to be okay to reopen the different topics we just put in the parking lot for the first phase. So here, to be sure that you understood our approach, I'm gonna take another example. You all know, I'm sure, it's relationship. You can think about a relationship in many different ways. The first one could be, for example, you meet someone, you date, you have a first date, a second date, and then the week after you propose, you get married, and then you decide to have a kid, buy a house, do whatever it's possible in a relationship, and all of this in 2 months. Or you can decide after having met someone to go for a first date, and then a second one, and then decide to be together, take your time, align yourself, understand better who your partner is, start building slowly your relationship to make it stronger and to make it more durable. And I'm sure right now you understood why we go for this minimum viable product. We want our customers to be able to make the right decisions with us and to build with us the stronger and the longest relationship. And this is all about like this is what we try to achieve. It's trust is the key, and building the longest relationship possible is the end result if we succeed in achieving all of those goals. And it goes by challenging our customers. But this is not only consultants who do that, of course.
Indeed, everyone in the company should challenge. Everyone should be aligned that not everything that the customer says, wants, or expects can also be delivered or reproduced exactly how they say it. So every different role in the company, may it be with direct customer contact or nothing at all, has to be in that same mindset. Think about an upgrade team, support, or even technical support. If they would execute simply what their colleagues or what any customer would ask them to do, it would be completely unaligned with, for example, what project leaders or what sales discuss with the same customer, but just several months before. So that's why make sure that every department follows the same kind of challenging principle, that every request that they get, start asking the why and the reasons behind. Now, because we don't have enough time to talk about the relationship between every department, we're going to pick the departments that, well, me and Catherine represent as well, the sales and the project leader. It is vital for these two departments to have the same mindset and the same approach to their customer, because the sales has to hand over the project eventually to the project leader, but the sales also has to prepare the customer. The project leaders eventually they are responsible for the success of the project and the more long-term collaboration. So in order to make it clear how similar but at the same time different the conversations are that the sales and the project leader have in different situations, I have some statements that customers have already mentioned us and perhaps to you as well, and we'll see how the different departments will deal with it. So the first one I have is the comment that they have always done it this way. Customers will say that quite easily because they just need to change systems simply because their provider stops or their IT person left and now they don't know what to do anymore. And they just want to reproduce whatever they had. As a sales, we need to make sure that we focus together on the future. They come to us with an issue or maybe with a situation, and we are not there to reproduce exactly what they had. We're there to make things more efficient at a low cost with a high efficiency. So together, we need to discuss that we won't reproduce. It has also something to do with explaining the customer about the methodology. Catherine, how would consultants deal with a comment like this?
Of course, we're going to keep going in the same direction as the sales. We are all aligned on what we do. But I would say when it comes to talk about that during the project, we're going to highlight the fact that we've always done this way is not a good reason to keep doing it. And from my experience, we will have like two possible situations. The first one is we've always done this way, and we have a good reason to do it this way. Then by challenging the customer, we get more information, we get more details, and then we end up being convinced by our customer that this is a good way to proceed and they should keep it to be, as I said earlier, as efficient as they used to be with the previous solution. But this is 20% of the time. Most of the time, 80% of the time, there is another issue behind. Most of the time, the issue behind is resistance to change. They don't want to change the way they work because they know that they're going to have to support people in this change, and this is not something easy for a company to support people in change management. So in this case, and when we observe that the issue is not actually the process itself, but another issue behind, what we tell to our customer is, and we challenge them with that, is do you really want to fix an issue by doing something that is going to put your project at risk? And this is where we start talking about being rational in our project. But Niels, the thing is, right now, this one was pretty expected, but don't you have like something a bit more crunchy for us?
Sure. So we have this one comes, of course, along quite often. We've always done it this way. Customers might also be a bit more challenging. So let's see the next statement. Who hasn't had a client that said, "Well, I am the client, you listen, and you execute what I demand"? Now, this can be on every level in the company. I want to develop this feature. I'm willing to pay for it. Just do it. Or when you're in sales, they would just say, "This is what I want. You tell me what you show me what I need, and then we pay whatever price you ask." Now, this might seem sometimes like the ideal world, but it's definitely not the best for a project. In sales, we need to bring it down that whatever we're going to do, even in the first section of the first part of the discussion, it's going to be for a long run. And there will be no success if there is no dialogue. Interact with us, share what you know, and we share what we know. Um, if it would be just us trying to recreate something that you have today, it will not work in any way on the long run because, well, of all the issues that Catherine has already explained at the beginning of this talk. Here, something that is vital is that we explain to the customer the methodology that we have, because he will be challenged on every step of the way. Um, when you will purchase a solution, you will not only purchase the software or the implementation service, but the methodology comes free with it.
So on our side, but as I said earlier, we're gonna keep being in line with what the sales said. Of course, normally we don't have to handle that so often because it's already tackled on the sales side. Having said that, it still happens regularly because we have a change in a project, for example, a new SPOC, new management in the company, and all of this can still happen. So we have to handle that kind of situation as well. The thing is, in this case, we're gonna keep going and try and go a bit further. So try to highlight to the customer that if we apply this, like just do what they want without discussing, there is no project success at the end. We are, and this is something I repeat regularly to the consultant, is you are not that there to give instant satisfaction to your customer, but to focus on the long term and to make sure that at the end of this project we could be proud of what we achieved. So we redo and we re-explain to the customer why it makes sense for us to be challenging, to be demanding in the implementation. We re-explain our mission. Our mission in a project is simple. We design a solution with the customer in which we both believe in. And if we don't do so, there is no way for to be successful in the project. Of course, uh, we have to listen to our customers sometimes as well, and most of the time they are right as well. So, to for the next statement, uh, we're going to talk about our customers saying, okay, this is specific to our industry. And of course, depending on the sector, depending on the size of the company, on the country, on the region, we're going to have like specificities and we're going to have to onboard and level up with our customers. And in this case, yeah, we have to listen carefully to our customers for us to understand exactly what are the issues, what are the constraints in their situation, and we do it, listen carefully. But what we expect from our customers is to be open to work around, be open to another solution, because at the end of the day, what matters for them is to reach their business objectives, not to be right. But what's happening on the sales side, actually, Niels?
Well, on the sales side, we need to be humble. I mean, not every commercial person has experience in every field. Maybe your company is built up in a certain way that you do have industries, but you might get that one client that works in an industry where you just don't have enough knowledge on. As a salesperson, don't try to force things in ways that you are known or accept blindly something that a customer says. Try to ask them, don't try, ask them to level with you. Help Ask them to help you understand so you can take the best decision for their project. Um, if they have something that is very specific to their industry, that is either legal or because it's just a necessity for that particular way of working, try to understand and translate that into, in this case, Odoo, how we could support it in the most efficient way. Still there, it doesn't mean that because they want something, we should do it exactly in that direction. Again, we're not trying to recreate what they know. We try to offer them a solution which is best suited for their activity. So all these, let's say, three examples together seems like it's quite a lot of work, Catherine, for your team to take the right decision at the right moment, when to accept, when to decline, and when to discuss correctly with your customers. So
Yeah,
how do you take the right decision at the right moment?
but that is true. We we make the right decision at the right moment because we bring the debate into the rational area. So there is something really important to remember when you are involved in a project. It's like compared to your customer, your you have they have way stronger emotional tie than you have. So they're nervous. Sometimes it's their company. They've built it from scratch. So they're like it's stressful as a moment. It's making decisions and making ambitious decisions. It's not always the easiest for them. So we use two different um, approaches to ease this process of thinking rational. The first one, and I'm pretty sure that you know this cartoon. This is not a proper tool. This is just something I use with the consultant for them to keep in mind that this is really important for them to uh, think rationally during the project. So what you're going to see here is like on the vertical, you're going to have the time required to complete a task. And on the horizontal, you're going to see the amount of time you have to complete this task, the frequency. So here, the idea of this cartoon is to explain to to the consultant, to project leaders, that they have to uh, make it rational to the customer by saying, okay, you know what? If you do something once a year and it takes half an hour, do you really think that it's worth it to automate this task? Is it really crucial for your company? Is it going to put your business at risk if we keep doing it manually, for example? Same example in the opposite. Of course, we're not going to discuss forever. If we have a task taking half an hour, we have to complete 50 times per day. So don't take into account the figures here. It's not rocket science. Once again, it's just a cartoon, but it's a good way to keep in mind, should we do it or not? Is it important or not? The second thing we're going to do, and this is where we really need to think rationally, is it a priority or not? And for that, we use another tool, which is this graph. So on this graph, you're going to see we're going to position a requirement coming from the customer on which we are not in the same line. So what we're going to do is to define how impactful is the change if we do it. So how much employees are going to like save time and be able to do more if we implement this requirement. The other axis is the ease of transformation. Is it easy? Is it standard in Odoo? Is it easy to put in place? And aside from that, is it easy for people to adopt the new way of working? And based on that, you're going to be able to position the different requirements that are kind of issues in the conversation with your customer, and to define whether or not it should be a priority in the project. Then. So the first one would be the quick win. It's impactful, really impactful. It's easy to put in place. We call it the quick wins. Most of the time, it won't be a problem to have it in the MVP. Secondly, we're going to have the game changers. It's not easy to implement, but it has a huge impact in terms of efficiency for the company. We're going to consider it, but it's part of what we're going to discuss when it's going to come to define what's in and out the MVP. Then we're going to have the fine tuning. There, we're going to have easy requirement to implement, but it doesn't have much impact. It could be a good way for you to negotiate with your customer. I'm not going to implement this game changer, but I'm going to implement a few of the fine tunings because the game changer maybe is too impactful or too um, not important, impactful enough for your customer to be worth to be in the MVP. And at the end, the to avoid that should, I think, it says for itself, that shouldn't be in the MVP for sure, and probably should be dropped even from the parking lot. On top of that, we're going to take two other information so that we can go as far as possible in this conversation with the customer. The first information would be the amount of employees impacted by the change. This is the bubble size. on the graph. And the second one would be the level of criticality. This is the bubble colors. And based on that, we're going to have enough information to bring this debate at the rational level and to put on the side everything that is more related to fear of change and pressure related to the ambition of the project. So you understood it here after having built the trust with your customer and make sure that you are on the best track to have the most sustainable relationship with your customer. You're going to take care and acknowledge the fact that emotionally the charge is way higher on your customer side than on yours. So right now, what we're gonna do, now you understood like those two main principles, is to go through a few things you should keep in mind during your implementation so that you know and you keep control on your project and you make sure that you keep challenging your customer in the best way without your project to become a disaster. A disaster. So, Niels, could you tell us a bit more about what it is to prepare your customer before the implementation?
Definitely. As we have said before, the sales department and the project leaders have to work together a lot. And one thing that the sales has to do, besides of course qualifying amazing project, do good demos and make sure that the customer is excited about Odoo, is to explain the approach and the methodology that we're trying to put in place. As I've said before, when you get along with Odoo and do an implementation, you get the implementation challenging approach for free. So prepare your customers in how they are going to work with their consultants. What is the vision that we try to put in place? Make them understand that it's for the long run. And what we're trying to achieve is that they follow us in that mindset. And that last part might be the most difficult. I almost wanted to say the most challenging thing, because a customer might not be very comfortable or even familiar with this approach. But once they understand that it's for the better of their project, that it will help them to save time, to be quicker, more efficient, and that in long term it will help them to collaborate in the best possible way and to reduce the number of time they lose or systems that they're using, then they will follow us or you in the best way possible to get the success out of their project. So prepare your customers before they work with their project leader on what they can expect from the implementation methodology and the challenging approach.
Another topic is, and don't make that mistake, it's not about challenging people, it's about challenging the requirement. So, for that, you really need to make the right decision, challenge for the right reason. So, you challenge to align yourself with your customer and to be sure that you all believe in what you're going to achieve together. I know that sometimes the projects are a bit long and sometimes it can become personal, but keep in mind that you're there to challenge the requirement, not the people. And the point is to keep this trust as high as possible for your project at the end to be a project success. And all of this goes together. Think about collaboration when it comes to talk about people. Think about challenging when it comes to talk about the requirement. Another topic, and it's not an easy one, obviously. It's not an easy job. It's hard. And I can tell you from experience that in my team, there are a lot of people on the first day really eager to start the project, confident about the fact that they're going to be able to challenge the customer throughout the project. And then by the time it's tiring because all the time saying no to a customer, it's not an easy job. Psychologically, it's not easy. And even for the relationship with the customer, sometimes it's a bit tiring. So keep in mind that it takes time. You have to re explain regularly the logic to your customer so that he doesn't take it personally, for example. But also keep in mind the fact that this is frustrating for you, but this is also frustrating for your customer. So by onboarding them on that and repeating, okay, I know this is not easy, but we're going to do it together. And this is for the good of the project. You ensure your project success as well on a daily basis.
Of course, as professionals, we are there to add value to the project. So when you speak to your customer, make sure that you remain this advisor, and that when we ask questions and when we confront the customers with challenging questions, make sure you add value to the discussion. When you need an answer in order to take the right decision, think twice about the right question to ask. The better the question, the better the output, so you can take the right decision. If you're correctly involved, if you show that you have a genuine interest in the discussion and in their project, they will trust you more, and there will be also more information that the customer is willing to share with you. And at the end, expertise, giving the right feedback, giving the right explanation on why a certain question or a certain subject requires more time, will also build the trust and the collaboration with your customer, that they will give you the information that you're looking for in order to make that project a success. So make sure that whatever you do, whoever you have in front of you, that you remain the advisor on the project. And the last advice that we can give to you, all the things above that we have said, if you do them in the right way, but not with the right attitude, so using the wrong words or being slightly passive aggressive in the wrong way, it might not get the message across. So depending on who you have in front of you, use the right vocabulary and adjust your speech. Don't talk the same to a technical profile as you would do to management. Um, Re-explain if necessary. Take your time and stay calm. So have patience, because whoever is in front of you, they also want to move forward. Everyone who pays for something wants to see result as fast as we can. But sometimes it's better to guide them through that process, to take a little step back, take a moment to discuss about something before taking a decision, and make sure that that decision is the right one. And at the end, choose your words carefully. Your intention may be great, and even not only just the question, but also the advice that you give can be perfect in every way. But if we use the wrong words, or if we say it with the wrong attitude, it might be received incorrectly and not have the right effect. Attitude is very important. Knowing who your customer, your audience, the person in front of you is, will help you a lot in order to get that message across more clearly.
So I think now you know why we do insist on challenging our customers so much. I think you've understood that this is really healthy for the project for the long term rather than focusing on giving instant satisfaction to our customers. So, if I had to tell you and to summarize this talk, I would say that fear is temporary and regrets is forever. So now, Niels, could you like if they want to go a bit more into details on several topics. So could you explain us what they can do for that?
All right. I won't tell you what you should do, but I will tell you what you could do if you want to know more about some of the subject that we already touched during this talk. Now, first thing, we have a talk about the Odoo implementation methodology during this Odoo experience, and I would highly recommend you to have a look at that one. If you don't have time to rewatch the video, or you would prefer to go through the written documentation, for partners, there's one on the partnership knowledge base. But for anyone who is interested, there will be one available if you just reach out. The Odoo implementation methodology will explain how challenging the customers is part of the greater methodology that we apply for all our projects. Secondly, since Catherine and her team is growing every day, and we make sure that all the right approaches are shared amongst our colleagues, we can make sure that for partners, we share that experience with you. We have different services that we can propose. There's a dedicated talk around this. So go and check out the Odoo Services for Partners talk, or reach out to your account manager to learn the different kind of services that we can share with you, to avoid making the same mistakes that we have done in the past, or to learn from the best practices that helped us to be as efficient as we are today. And the last thing, was the last subject that we already mentioned of the tips and tricks, the attitude. It's difficult. We don't have any talk dirty Odoo experience, and it's more in interpersonal kind of change. But go and read books, ask feedback of people around you to see what you can adjust in your speech and the way you speak or the words you use in order to get that message across clearly. Because even if we get the theory right perfectly, if how our message is interpreted is not as we expect it to be, all is for nothing. So go out, maybe read some books and see how other people do things, and learn from the attitude and improve. So thank you all for attending our talk. We hope that it will motivate you to start challenging your customers and to learn from how we have grown Odoo over the past years. Thank you very much. We'll be open for questions. All right, welcome everyone to the Q&A session of this
Hey
talk.
Niels, are you doing it again? Seriously?
This one was on purpose to check if you were sharp.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so we thank you everyone for watching the talk. We don't have a lot of questions, so either we were very clear in what we said, or people are still processing a lot of the tips and tricks that we gave. Catherine, we do have some time to kill, so maybe we can start off with just a very broad question. You're at Odoo since 2014, so you must have seen an evolution in how consultants are challenging the customers, right?
Yeah, definitely. The thing is, at the very beginning, we considered ourselves as like a Swiss knives, right? So as project leaders, we were supposed to do everything like customization, sometimes a bit of development. That was pretty exciting. But the thing is, we realized at some point that that was a bit messy, right? We couldn't upgrade. That was like pretty complicated, and we didn't have the skills, right? So by the time we improved a bit the way we implement project, and we improved a bit as well the way we tackle our issue in project. So the thing is, challenging was the secret to that. So we started telling consultants, okay, you know what? When you go to a project, focus on the minimum viable product, and then progressively increase the amount of functionalities you're gonna add to the database, right? And I have to admit that today the quality of our implementations are way better. We are way more comfortable in upgrading the different databases we have implemented. By the time something's completely different, and I said it during the talks 2 times, but yeah, fear is temporary and regret is forever. And this is really the key here. Like changing customers is like basically the key for the success of your implementation.
Yeah. And maybe to add to that, since a little while, Odoo also created a team for mid-market and corporate, which uses the exam challenging technique, either by challenging the customers or applying an ROI analysis to show them how we can resolve an ID or a need from a customer. And that answers the first question that we got in the chat from Hugo, how we apply this methodology to the 2,000 plus employees, because those companies want to be challenged, right?
Yeah, that's right. The thing is, it's obvious that it's not as easy to challenge a like 1,000 plus employees company to like compared to 2 employees company. Of course, the ability to change and the ability to accept evolution is completely different. However, in this kind of situation, we do we do challenge because it's still a key success factor for our implementation. Plus, and I have a pretty recent example where like we were in a tricky situation in a large project. And I would say that the very first issue we had was that we hadn't challenged enough. And when we had like the steering committee, the like tricky steering committee, the sponsors on the company side, on the customer side, told us, okay, you know what, we expected you to challenge us more. And we expected this project to be a good occasion for us to question ourselves on the way we work and to stick to what Odoo can offer for many reasons, stability, ability to upgrade easily, but also actually question the way they work and make people change at the moment of the implementation, like benefit from this change to make everything evolve
Step by step.
Step by step.
Yep.
Exactly.
And that, I think, answers also the question of Mr. Palmeri, how we plan to use this methodology for companies that use SAP and Oracle. Obviously, not everyone can change every process in their company, but by relying on the minimum viable product, we implement it step by step based on the process that makes sense.
But that is actually a question we get like regularly. Huh? So, and I really would like to clarify it because this is pretty important. Like in the Odoo implementation methodology, we don't say that we shouldn't do development. We just say, let's keep it as standard as possible. So of course, once again, the amount of development we're going to perform in a really small implementation should and must be smaller than for a big company. But at the end of the day, our commitment to our customers is to say, I'm going to ensure the fact that you're going to have the right amount of development and not a crazy amount. So I talked about that during the change management talk yesterday. The thing is, you have to focus on on what you have to achieve and the quality of the solution. You have to provide the right solution for the customer, for them to be at least as efficient as they used to be with their previous system, right? So it doesn't mean you can't do development. It means challenge the business needs, because the business needs have to be challenged during an implementation. That's as simple as that. This is a really good occasion to question ourselves at that moment, right? But we do development in a large project, of course. Huh?
Something that comes back in different ways in the questions is, I think it's William Knowles who says it. What is the best speech towards customers if they're not used to challenging? And there's another question of what's the best way to help PMs to trace on this. So a bit in the same line, how would you prepare someone that is not used to challenging customers in your consultancy team to have the right pitch towards the customers?
But this is obvious. Huh? This is probably what's the hardest in implementing new management software, and Odoo in particular. Applying the Odoo implementation methodology is like sticking to challenging customers from day one to the end of the implementation. This is tiring. This is exhausting, and this is really demanding. Like psychologically, sometimes you don't want to enter the room and say no again to your customer. So this is a long-term phase, training phase for newbies entering this job. So we train them on that. We explain them why it makes sense and why they're going to avoid a lot of issues in their project. But still, we need to insist, shadow calls, give them feedback, show them that when they challenge, actually their implementation are like more successful than if they don't. And I would say that after having churned one project because of that, I think the lesson is learned. But of course, all the consultants don't go through that to understand the lesson. But, I was wondering something. It's like, for us as consultants, it's pretty like the project is already sold, right? So it's already ongoing, right? It's not easy, but still, we are already in the project. But for sales, it's a bit more challenging, I think, because you still have to close a deal.
Oh,
right?
Definitely. Yeah. We have a lot of salespeople struggling with that balance. When do you and how do you say no to a customer? But I think the major point of challenging is once you build a relationship with the customer, that you can offer them something more than just a good demo, but actually a business advice on how they can improve the way they work, or instead of developing something that costs a lot of money, you do it slightly different and still get the same result, and sometimes even much better, just because the customer didn't think of it. When salespeople get that balance and forced a bit in the way to present solutions to the customers that don't 100% fit what they ask, but 70 or 80%, I think then the salespeople will have that click in their mind, the understanding that you will be able to help your customer much better, and the products that you will sell will be much less likely to churn because you manage the expectations better. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
One question that was already asked twice is that there is, you suggested that during the situations on the gap analysis, there might be sometimes requirements that are easierly done by external solutions, and maybe very expensive to recreate or to find a solution in Odoo. Would you propose to use other softwares, or would you propose to tackle that in another way?
Enfin, every single situation is different, so it's hard to answer that question. Like, there is no recipe again. But I would say, when you have that kind of statement, that kind of conversation, like the starting point of the conversation is, are we here to replicate your previous management software, or are we here to replace it, right?
Yeah.
And then by opening the conversation like that, we can highlight the fact that they made the decision to actually replace it for a lot of good reasons, probably. And then we go step by step with them, like we bring them entering, like getting this mindset of challenging by themselves their own needs. So the thing is, like every time we have a conversation about a request, a requirement, we have, as you said at the very beginning of the talk, we're going to understand why they raised the topic, right? And depending on this conversation, the results of this conversation, we're going to accept or not to develop something. As I said earlier, this is not bad to accept to develop a new functionality if we all agree on the fact that this is necessary. And this is the key of this conversation, something that matters versus something that doesn't really matter. And that was just like part of the dreamt solution beginning at the very beginning of this conversation. So this is once again, I would say, like when it comes to talk about change management or challenging customers, the conversation is exactly the same. You have to, and it makes it really hard and really tricky for the project leaders, is understanding that there is no recipe, and you really have to adapt yourself to the context and to make this effort to understand the business need, to understand what they need to achieve to be successful and for the business to grow. And based on this, your ability to understand that, then you can make the right decision, and you're going to accept or refuse to develop a new functionality.
Yeah. So basically, to say it in to recap it in this kind of a conclusion, the questions that were asked a couple of times about when there is a gap, if it's necessary to develop, you can decide to do so. If it's necessary to keep it in a system, you could also decide to do so. But it should always be a discussion, and what is the outcome that comes from it.
Yeah.
But there's always a reason behind it.
Yeah, of course. To answer the question specifically related to integrating Odoo with another software, we've done that like many times. If we can avoid doing it for obvious reasons, we are not going to do it, just because an integration is something that should be maintained between two different softwares, and those two different softwares are going to upgrade at the same time or not. So it's like there is extra work behind that. And more risk for like issues and bugs and everything that could happen in this kind of situation. But the thing is, we accept it when the cost of change is way higher than the cost of just creating the integration.
Yeah,
most of the time. But once again, this is
one question that was asked at the beginning of the Q&A session, and I think it's the last question that we will be able to answer for now, is how long a challenge session should last. So that can be answered in a very different way, but let's maybe just say it at the beginning. It's never a session, right?
No, it's not a session. But actually, the thing is, we don't have like challenging sessions. like, hey guys, now it's
We
going to
sit
be a no
down.
session and get ready. No, it's more like all of this is happening like mainly during the analysis sessions, during the ROI analysis, throughout the project, and at any moment actually, whenever a customer decided to decide to change the scope or to add a new request in the add a new requirement in the project, in the scope. The thing is, we're gonna have that kind of conversation. So we have those conversations every time it's required, but which is really important in this question, and I forgot what I wanted to say. What was the question again?
How long the challenging sessions should last?
But it's you should challenge as long as required. Oh yeah, what I wanted to say is like we're still figuring out the time required for that in a project. So like, and I'm talking about the estimation we do at the end of a ROI analysis. The bigger the project is, the trickier it is as well to estimate the time required for challenging customers. So you'd better, in this situation, increase a bit the amount of time you think you're going to need to do the analysis and challenge your customer. You'd better increase a bit this time rather than reducing to the minimum, because it takes time. It takes a lot of energy as well to explain and make them understand why you are doing it, right? Because, and this is this part that is really time consuming actually.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of the Q&A. We'll go to a breakout room for any additional questions. Thank you for asking the question. Thank you for explanation.
Thanks you.
And we wish you a good Odoo experience.